I was a traveling salesman, the Elfwood Candy Company. I could sell anything to anyone, anywhere, at any time. We met cute on the outskirts of Ogreland. Just coming back from shopping. It was love at first sight. For one of us. Then I hit on it. It weren't me, it were the candy. Ogres don't dig sweets. So I whipped up a special flavor just for her. Sour it was, just enough to give your mouth a pucker. And pucker up we did. What are you, a prude? You don't like to think about
Oh my God.
What's it say?
A blue line.
Holy moly! Either you're pregnant or that candy cane is right. Wasn't long after this that you came along. I was a traveling salesman. The
confusing, but essentially a... Hey everyone, and today
Hello. Oh, Jesus Christ, my hair looks a little fucking weird. Just shag it out a little bit. Sorry, give me a second, guys. Alright, how's everybody doing today? My name is, of course, Kick-Ass Kai. I don't know why I'm opening it up like a fucking YouTube video, but anyways, welcome to the stream. As you can guess, I'm Kick-Ass Kai, and what were we watching tonight? Well, it's in the damn title. It's, we'll be looking at the 001 SCP iceberg that Wendigo made a while ago, and then we're just going to be learning about a lot of SCP lore while touching on SCPs that we like and love, you know. So nice things we're doing. Let's see. How's everybody doing tonight, though? We doing good? Hopefully we are. Let's see. Of course. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Yep. Man, I love Wendigo. He has the patience that I don't in order to do this. So we're gonna Gonna play?
Hey everyone, and today we are
Oh,
covering
Jesus.
every single SCP-001 proposal. As I mentioned in my last video concerning SCPs, which link in the description if you want to see that, the identity of SCP-1 has never been revealed. Supposedly, this is to hide the true identity of SCP-1, as its powers either so great or its secret so important that they never want it to be public knowledge. What that means in the writing spectrum is that some of the best writers from the SCP universe have come together to compile a list of separate explanations to what this mystical entity could be. Most of these have to do with the O5 Council, with the explanation for how humanity came to exist in itself, and so on and so forth. We have got a lot of these to cover, 37 to be exact, so we'll go ahead and get into it. I do want to say really quick, thank you all so much for everything. The first SCP video I did is at 100,000 views now, which I can't even process. It's so wild. I'm at 7,000 subscribers. The Patreon's going up. It means so much to me. It's really humbling, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, sincerely. So let's go ahead, run down every single SCP-01 proposal, and as always, thank you for watching.
Sorry, I'm moving
First
stuff around.
proposal is Jonathan Ball's, and that is for the Sheaf of Papers. The Sheaf of Papers is a stack of papers in one of the SCP facilities that is continuously writing new information across the top. It's been observed by the Foundation staff that every time that this Sheaf of Papers adds a new entry to the top, that an SCP matching that description appears somewhere in the world. Now, the Foundation doesn't know if this is some form of warning and may be beneficial, or if this piece of paper is what's causing new SCPs to be formed. However, the theory is that what they're reading with this is the website that us, the real world writers, are compiling, and every time that we make a new SCP, it gets added to the Sheaf of Papers and therefore put into their world. Also, I want to mention really quick why each of these proposals have a name associated with them. While several of these are the name of the original author, the in-universe explanation is that everyone in the facility who was given their proposal to write a fake SCP in order to cover up the real one did so by attaching either their name or an alias to it. And then whichever one is the real SCP simply had someone else's name put on top of it. And even though canonically there's only supposed to be one real one, i.e. whatever one is your favorite, you can just simply assume that that's the real one. There are theories ranging from all of them are real to none of them are real. So really whatever you prefer. Next, we have Dr. Beers' proposal known as the Prototype. Prototype was a 6-foot-tall, grayish-black creature that had spikes for limbs and an eye inside of its mouth, and seemingly no other features. However, this creature did give off an amount of radioactive energy, and the theory states that, given its name Prototype, that this creature may have been an original embodiment of what is now human. During containment for this creature, it killed someone known as Dr. Herman Ketter, and therefore, according to this theory, the reason that hard to contain entities are known as Keter in the SCP lore is in honor of this doctor who was killed. Next, we have Dr.
That's awesome. Oh, hold on, never mind. We're on the Gate Guardian next, so I'm gonna save. I love the Gate Guardian.
Of the Gate Guardian. Gate Guardian is roughly
Wait, was it say was it Clef?
We have Dr. Clef's proposal of
Oh, it was Clef. I didn't know Clef did the Gate Guardian. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. That's more Clef lore for me too. It's awesome.
Gate Guardian. Gate Guardian is roughly 1,100 feet tall and stands at the guard of this portal, or gate as it's seen, and seen behind him is a beautiful luscious garden, and this is all located between the Euphrates and the Tigris River. So yes, the theory is that this creature is the angel that stands at guard at the Garden of Eden. Also, according to the history of the Foundation regarding this, years and years back, King Solomon was traveling in order to find the Garden of Eden and came across the angel who told him one word, prepare, and that was what inspired him to start the original SCP Foundation. Obviously, because the Foundation doesn't know any better, they have attempted to kill this thing in several different ways. According to the Foundation's understanding, anything that crosses a 1 kilometer threshold within the proximity of the Gate Guardian is immediately struck down by a sword he carries which looks like the sun. One time they tried to take a D class and send it towards it, to which the D class was killed and then the entire team behind him was killed. They then tried to do the same thing with a group of 100 drones and it destroyed all the drones at once. They tried to launch a missile at it from a submarine. It destroyed the missile and then the submarine controlling the missile. They even tried to send Cain and Abel to go take care of it, which Cain and Abel are known SCPs, SCP-73 and SCP-76, within the canon. Abel simply collapsed and said he's not going anywhere near it, and he remembers it. And then Cain went, became confused, said he's not messing with it, and then the mark of Cain on his forehead began to glow. Also, one time, the Foundation got a message.
Abel says he remembers it? Okay, now I gotta explore the whole Cain and Abel thing next, but this first.
From the facility containing the Gate Guardian, that this was it, it's the end times, the rapture is coming, and it's all over. They then contacted the facility to see what it was. They had no idea what they were talking about, and on reviewing the message, that message was sent from the future. So that's promising. Next is Quantum's proposal for the lock. This SCP-01 is a beautiful black gemstone that is wrapped with a sort of golden lock fixture around it. It was discovered in Mesopotamia, and on the top of the rock is what appears to be a keyhole, although the key has not been discovered, and the rock is seemingly indestructible. The only hint that we get as to what this might be is the rock gives off very specific radio waves in fluctuations of radiation from time to time, which upon analysis match almost perfectly to the proposed theory of how our universe gives off radiation. So yes, this rock is literally our universe held in a sort of bubble. So probably a good thing they don't open it up. Dr. Bright's proposal of the factory. Unlike most SCP articles, the factory is not framed as a standard containment protocol for a creature. Instead, it is a story told by the first member of the O5 Council, known as the Founder. According to him, in 1835, a man by the name of James Anderson,
I'm learning so goddamn much about this stuff.
Or demon worshipper, built a factory that could seemingly produce anything. This included magical hammers, super weapons, clothing that could absorb energy, and things like that that you're pretty familiar with if you already know the SCP universe. However, to obtain these ends, and as you would imagine what happens when a saint worshiper owns a factory, people were essentially treated like cattle, regularly killed during duty, and chained to the assembly line in order to produce these things. At the time the Founder got here, which keep in mind this is far before the SCP Foundation formed, they went to liberate all of these people, and upon entering the sublevels of the factory, they came across these half-human amalgamations of human and animal and machinery, and it killed about half of his team. After that, they discovered more and more rooms and cellars and locked doors down there that housed both anomalies that were alive, like the aforementioned creatures, and inanimate objects that seemed to be beneficial for some use. Anderson was killed, and then that site was referred to as Site Alpha, and was the beginning of what the Foundation would later become. However, a few years after they started, these new creatures came to attack them, known as fairies. And no, not like little Tinkerbell fairies, like think more evil orc monster with axe fairy. This led to one night when the fairies raided the facility. The Founder ran all the way downstairs through every hallway he could and came across an ornate golden door with supposedly scripture of some kind written on it. After he goes through the door, because he has no other option and he's being chased, he finds the body of Anderson, now cut in half and speaking from a very decomposed mouth. The body of Anderson makes a deal with him and says he will give him, as well as all the friends he has lost, immortality if they spend their existence bringing him new anomalies and creatures. And having no other option, the Founder says yes. This is how the Founder and his 12 teammates became the original O5 Council, which still exists to this day, according to this theory. And as per their agreement, they have spent their entire existence bringing in new creatures to...
I always thought the O5 was gonna just like, I didn't know that they were immortal. I just knew that they were like shadowy type of people. But that's interesting that they're immortal. But that would fucking suck, though, for anybody that worked there. Fucking, because, like, if you're trying to... Wait, hold up, because wasn't Dr. Bright's dad on the O5? If I remember... Is it Bright or Clef? No, it's Bright, if I remember correctly. Clef is the one that did it with one of the SCPs, had a daughter, and a whole bunch of other stuff, but, yeah.
to the Foundation in order to appease whatever dark lores that they gave themselves to. Dr. Mann's proposal, the spiral path. Now, the spiral path is interesting, as with, unlike these other ones, it's just like a normal SCP. It is a gravel trail in the middle of the woods in Wisconsin that whenever it is walked one direction, it forever goes up one route until you get back to where you began and having gained no altitude. And if you walk the other direction, the exact same happens, only going downhill. According to this proposal, there's nothing that special about it aside from other standard SCPs. However, this was the SCP discovered by a man named Aaron Siegel that inspired him to look more into what anomalies the world holds, and this man eventually started the Foundation, got an administrator by the name of Agnes, and it gets into more of the nuts and bolts of how the actual Foundation works. Also, quick side note, a lot of these have these very long stories behind them. However, there's way too many for me to get into the story of everyone, so I am just describing the proposal and the things itself rather than all of the narrative behind it, so that this video isn't like 8 hours. Next is Dr. McKenzie's proposal of the Legacy. This is technically 3 items. One is a gray box that displays the digital number 23% and then a redacted number beneath it. The other is a key made of the same material as the gray box, which supposedly fits into the gray box. And then finally a journal that has not seen any signs of decomposition, despite how old it supposedly is. Upon reading the journal, you find out that it is the journal of the fabled administrator. According to this, the administrator is from a parallel universe, but not just a standard one-to-one parallel universe. He is from several parallel universes away. From what he says, in his timeline, humanity had progressed to the point that we were harnessing energy and time in order to make weapons and material. This led to a ripple effect that was going to destroy every universe in existence. So they harnessed their last of their energy to send one man into the next universe over so that he could hopefully figure out how to stop the spread of what was coming. This man became known as the administrator, and through every universe he would start these organizations in order to better understand anomalous.
Oh god, I'm so fucking stupid.
In order to try to figure out the secret to how to stop the eventual destruction of every universe. By this theory, the administrator's been alive.
Had my speakers on the entire time. Come on.
Amount of time if he has started SCP foundations or things similar in every single universe, and given the 23% on the gray box he brought with him, the universe still has some time, but it ain't getting any shorter. Next is S. Andrew Swan's proposal of the database. This is referring to the database. According to this, the O1 slot is what's used to categorize every leaking of Foundation information that gets out of hand. For example, this could be movies that seem to reference SCPs, websites like the website itself that's used to reference SCPs, and it essentially says that if the website ever reaches such big groups of popularity that people start to question the actual validity of the SCP Foundation, or if me right now makes a video about it, they will disperse memetic kill agents online, which either hearing or just seeing things will cause you to die. So as always, my videos is putting you one day closer to death, so you're welcome. Next we have Scantron's proposal of the Foundation. This is written as an unusual incidents unit file, which I want to make a correction on the SCP video I did previously. The UIU is not a branch of the SCP Foundation, like I said. However, given the fact that they're not privy to the fact that the Foundation exists and are not allowed to interact at the same capacity, they are much less significant than the Foundation. So this O1 proposal is the UIU's file of what the Foundation might be. This comes from an incident in which a school had anomalies appear, and then people in suits showed up and took the anomalies away. And while we understand that to be the SCP Foundation, the FBI has no idea what's going on, so therefore this O1 proposal is them trying to understand what the Foundation is. Next we have Jory and Matrix's proposal of 36. 36 is 36 humans who have the superhuman ability of being able to stop any anomalous entity. Whenever one of these 36 are introduced to another SCP, that SCP loses its anomalous ability, or if it is a creature that is of itself anomalous, it goes into a comatose state. That sounds all well and good, until you figure out that every time one of these 36 people die, yes, their ability is reincarnated into someone who was just born, but their death causes a sort of breakthrough in the fabric of our reality, and a ton of new, very dangerous SCPs show up around the place they were killed. This implies that the 36 of them exist as a sort of reality anchor, and that whenever they come in contact with something that defies the rules of reality, it creates a sort of paradox. Therefore, the supernatural thing has to be put away.
That's
also,
interesting.
supposedly, if all 36 of them come together, something will happen, although no one knows what. However, given their properties of being reality anchors, either all the SCPs may go away, or all the SCPs may show up. Next is Roget's proposal of Keter duty. According to this O1 proposal, there is a facility known as Olympia located in Greece, which is the site that every single Keter entity that has ever existed has come from. Not only that, but according to this, the reason Keters are the way that they are isn't because of their containment procedures, it's because that is the designation given to one of these creatures from Olympia. According to this, whenever two of these Keter entities interact with each other, the universe gets a little wonky. And supposedly, if all the Keter entities were to come together, it would open up the gateway for our favorite giant red demon, the Scarlet King, to come through. Next is DJ Cactus and Twisted Gear's proposal of the Ouroboros cycle. This one is literally too long to get into. It's like a full novel-length story. Shortest version
Hold on. Grabbing me some sandwich. Grabbing me some PB&J. Yes, I had PB&J on my bed. Don't mind it. Schmuckers. PB&J. You know, every YouTuber gets like, what is that? Sponsored by like Raid Shadow Legends or like Raycon Earbuds. Imagine being sponsored by like just Schmuckers. That'd be fun. Probably would never be me, but it'd be fun.
It's divided into 4 parts. These 4 parts contain a group of 9 children given anomalous properties in order to stop whatever evil monsters coming next.
Oh, fuck.
The Church of the Broken God assembling their god, and so on and so forth. It's very confusing, but essentially a giant time loop is occurring, and we are seeing the final days of it. Next, we have Kate McTyrus's proposal of a record. This describes a record that whenever given to someone to put into a list, the record will always appear at the top of the list regardless of its actual placement. So for example, if you were to send it to a Billboard chart in order to rank, they would always put it at number 1. Doesn't really match the description for what an O1 proposal should be if it's these great overarching things that have to be contained or explain the entire universe itself, and that's what Mary Nakayama thought. Mary Nakayama was a researcher who figured that something was weird about this entry, so she did a test. She said in there, everyone has to give Mary $5 during lunch break today. If they can, she saved it, and then sure enough, everyone did. She then did the same thing by saying she gets paid vacation, and sure enough, it happened. Turns out, the reason SCP-001 is something so innocuous is whatever you put as the description in 001 will come to be. So Mary did the natural thing and proclaimed herself to be a god of all of time and the universe at once, to which she then disappeared and no one knows what happened. So maybe
Jesus.
she's a god out there, who knows. Therefore, SCP-001 is the actual entry of 001, and whatever is written there...
Dude, I would love to know more about Mary Nakayama. That sounds like an interesting character right there. If they really did become like a god of the entire SCP universe, or like one of the universes supposedly, that'd be a pretty interesting story to write about, or just even hear about. I gotta look up more.
Comes true. Next we have Kalina's proposal of past and future. This story opens up with O5 member number 2 going to see SCP-411. 411 tells the O5 member that there is coming a sort of end of days.
Wait, hold on.
What? The O5 member that they're going to see SCP-411.
411.
411 tells the O5 member that there is coming a sort of end of days, and that it's the final times of planet Earth. What spurred this was SCP-2788, which is a giant ring of protection around the Earth that is invisible to the human eye, being destroyed. According to this, there are these entities out in space that we can't identify, but what we do know is they hate humanity. because
Pit
every
cog.
time that they send a transmission to Earth, new Keter entities appear. And given the
Okay, hold up. I
destruction
gotta look
of
up more
the
of this one,
Earth's
too.
barrier, these things are getting more powerful. So essentially the O1 proposal here is that these creatures out in space are slowly causing the inevitable destruction of Earth. Next we have Wrong's proposal of the consensus. According to this, history as we know it has been rewritten by 13 people, those 13 people being the O5 committee. According to their true story, something happened called the Fifth Occult War that caused a reset of all of human history. But even given this, they have varying accounts of what actually happened and how things used to be, so the consensus may exist as a distraction from whatever really is going on, or if the consensus is true, it's unlikely the O5 will actually ever say what exactly happened. Next is SD Locke's proposal of When Day Breaks. When Day Breaks feels more
I've
like
heard
a
about this one. This
traditional
one's like
SCP.
horror.
The story is told more so in the form of a tale. Essentially, this follows an alternate timeline in which the sun, for whatever reason, became evil. Whatever sunlight touches immediately forms into this disgusting blob creature. It's described that people melt and then become putty and then join with other melted entities, and these giant thing-like Cronenberg monsters begin to form. So no one can touch the sunlight for any reason, and if you think you're safe to move at night, the moon is reflected sunlight, so no cigar. To give you an idea of how brutal this is, the story follows a group of researchers stuck in an SCP facility who they managed to convince a D class to try to lead one of these blob monsters away from their front door. As the blob monster grabs his foot and begins to pull him in, the D class shoots himself so he won't be turned into one of these things, to which the blob monster pours inside of his suit, rips his body out, brings him back to life just to melt him and then join him, so they literally won't let you die.
Jesus.
The rest of the story follows the sole survivor of this group as they try to make it to Site 19, which is supposedly humanity's last safe hold. I don't want to spoil the ending though, as I encourage you to read this one for yourself. Next we have Spike Brennan's proposal of God's blind spot. According to this,
that was another one I gotta look at tonight.
Completely devoid of Akiva radiation. Akiva radiation, as described by this proposal, is ambient radiation that exists anywhere that God also exists, or death itself, or life, or whatever have you. What this means is no one inside of this given area in the Middle East can die, or at least by natural means, because of course the Foundation kept testing this by like cutting people's limbs off and they lived. So then they eventually ran someone through an incinerator and they died. According to this story, the O5 Council has set up their base there, and the reason all of them are presumed to be immortal is because they're simply staying in an area in which no one is allowed to die, or even age for that matter. The justification for the story comes from Exodus chapter 4, in which it said God sought to kill Moses. According to this whole overarching story, the fact that God could not kill him implies that Moses was in a place to which God could not kill him. Therefore, as noted by historians who came before, such as Napoleon, this location is God's blind spot. Next is WJS's proposal.
That's fucking crazy.
This is exactly what
That's
it says.
interesting.
SCP-001.
Wait, God wanted to
is
kill
simply a
Moses? What
definition
for?
Of what normal is, and therefore
Why did God want to kill
whatever
Moses?
Anomaly isn't. It then goes into one of the O5 members talking about the importance of normalcy, and why, despite the damage that an SCP may or may not cause, why it's so important to protect the world from things that the world can't explain. Next is Bill's proposal of the world at large. This one starts off with a group receiving a very odd transmission of way out in space there seems to be some anomaly showing signs of life. We eventually find out that we are reading this from the perspective of a separate entity, supposedly some energy being that doesn't exist the same way that we think existence to occur, and this anomaly that they're referring to is Earth. Since it is so weird that a planet can support a carbon-based life form, the anomaly, or the original anomaly, is our existence itself. Next is Tanhony's proposal of Dead Men. This one's a really good read. The actual O1 itself is an old man who was discovered during an occult ritual whose body had been permanently fused with death itself.
Whoa.
The O5 committee used this to their advantage, to which they took this old man to the facility and used amnestics to remove all memory of the O5's faces. What this means is that because death does not recognize the O5 can never die. This story also gets into something rarely mentioned in the SCP lore, and that is the Ethics Committee. Now, the Ethics Committee is pretty much a joke, a group of people who make sure that the organization that runs people through a meat grinder for fun stays ethical. However, according to this, the administrator created the ethics committee in order to keep an eye on the O5 Council. The ethics committee views
because you don't want a group of like very powerful immortals to be like destroy.
The ethics committee group of soldiers known as Law's Left Hand goes against the O5's red right hand, to which eventually the ethics committee leader makes death itself look at all of the O5 members' faces.
I just finally realized today that like I have been having my shit on low for quite some time.
The ethics committee man shoots
like
himself
55.
while death is watching, therefore assuring he dies and the O5 can't bring him back to torture him. Then the story ends with our new member of for assuring he dies and the O5 can't bring him back to torture him. Then the story ends with our new member of the O5 Council, Dr. Gears, figuring out that shortly after this happened, all of the O5 died of natural causes. Next is Lily's proposal.
We'll do
for
65.
The World's Gone Beautiful. This one's very simple. 24 hours before the world is destroyed by whatever supernatural entity occurs, there is going to be these flowers and birds and natural beauty that blooms all over the world at once. This blooming is SCP-001, and it is in no way related to the causation of whatever destroys the world. It's simply a warning and a time of peace that can occur before the world ends. Procedures if O1 happens in this scenario is to simply let out every entity that won't hurt people, let everyone leave, and spend their last day however they wish. Next is Tufto's proposal of Scarlet King.
I gotta read that one.
Cycle is a really long one that I'm not going to get into now. The shorter version is that Scarlet King is an entity that is seen and mentioned throughout the entire SCP canon. According to this, the Foundation eventually discovers what the deal with him is. Anytime that a group on Earth has ever tried to assert their dominance or to create these overarching groups such as empires or governments or what have you, the Scarlet King gets more powerful through the tyranny of man. Because of this, the Foundation itself, trying to assert dominance, even if it is unknown to the public across the entire world, is making the Scarlet King more powerful. Therefore, this SCP-01 is a antithesis of the Foundation itself, because every time they discover more about the world and contain it, they are building up to the inevitable apocalypse that they themselves are creating.
Jesus.
In the last video I talked about 231 and Operation Montauk and a bunch of more stuff describing the Scarlet King that I won't get into here, but if you're interested, check that out, and I may make a whole video about him in the future. Next is Jim North's proposal of a simple toy maker. This is in reference to Dr. Wondertainment, which if you're familiar with SCP, you'll know several items and even people seem to be products of Dr. Wondertainment himself, or herself. The story changes every time you read it. Upon reading this file, you discover that Dr. Wondertainment wrote this himself by hyping up the details and making himself to be mysterious in some ways and kind of silly in others. It's another layer to the fact that no one really understands what Dr. Wondertainment's motives are and why he keeps making these anomalous SCPs. Next is I.H. Pickman's proposal, Story of Your Life. This is probably the...
I was gonna say it could be like the toy maker from Doctor Who, where he's just like more interested in like screwing around with shit because he's an actual like almighty entity or something.
The most cleverly written one in the entire thing. SCP-001 is an acknowledgement to the fact that this universe exists within a given story. Therefore, something they constantly have to be afraid of is story tropes making their way out. To contain these tropes, they essentially have to be thrown all into a story at once, or something known as narrative lampshading, which is whenever in a story they directly point out the ridiculousness of something that's happened, and supposedly that makes it okay. Therefore, this 001 entry is simply a fake story that was made up in order to contain all of the bad writing tropes that may exist somewhere else in the SCP lore. Next we have the Great Hippo featuring Pepper's ghost proposal, A Good Boy. This SCP-001 is a computer that the Foundation themselves created. The purpose of this computer was to use a sort of predictive text pattern to analyze all of the information brought in about previous SCPs in order to determine where new ones would come up. Then they decided to use it to determine how to best contain and neutralize these beings. However, the computer kind of got carried away with the neutralize part. See, it didn't really understand like ethics or morality in any regard, so all it kept suggesting was the most brutal ways to torture and kill people because it might do something. It referred to everyone in the Foundation who help the Foundation as good boys. And then it started suggesting that they kill everyone that wasn't a good boy, i.e. if a doctor had a moral problem with what the computer suggested, they should kill them. This leads to the entire O5 Council telling the computer that they are good boys and should be left alone. Some of the things the computer suggested was everyone cover yourselves in green foam and stand in T posing around 106, and that will disable it. Another is that they take every Coke product off of shelves and put the blood of virgins into each can. When asked why, the computer didn't know. And then it kept suggesting that they need to capture cats and then place their organs around the facility, which once again, when asked why, the computer didn't know. What's funny is they still leave this thing on, they just don't take advice from it. So somewhere in one of the sites is a computer that just keeps printing off the words kill, kill, kill. Next is a combined writing project of Wisehog, the Deadly Moose, Drew Bear, and Daxanote.
It's like can you imagine just like having a funny computer that like it's just trapped it. It's just like it's not like the other SCP. Which one is it? It's like 049, I believe. SCP-049. It's not like 049, but can you imagine just like right there? It's like on the desk of like some employee, just like, hey, you know, for future reference, maybe we should like put the blood of virgins in Coke cans, and they're just like, yeah, no, I heard you the first time, and then just like continue back on with their daily life, just being like, yep, I got you, I'll do that, I'll get on that right away, and it doesn't even know, just like fucking still printing out, just obscene bullshit, and they're just like, no, just daily shit.
Known as Project Palisade. This is a long story, but the short rundown of it is that there is a being out there in the universe that supposedly the Foundation created, known as the Worm. The Worm gets its power essentially by slowly feeding off of universes. To combat this and to combat our universe from being destroyed, the Foundation built several parallel universes in order to try to stay out of the Worm's range. This says that, therefore, every single parallel universe we hear about in the SCP world is a direct creation of the Foundation themselves. If you remember in the SCP iceberg video I did, I talked about the White Queen and how that's a tail on the Black Queen. Well, the Black Queen is one of the main characters in this story that is used.
Hold on. White Queen and Black Queen? Okay, I've gotta learn about that now, because that's an interesting, because I always like it when it's like So it was like in Alice in Wonderland with the White Queen versus the Red Queen and stuff like that. I like kind of like stuff like that, where it's like technically colored-based entities fighting each other, almost like chess. As a matter of fact, that's probably why I love it, because it's basically chess, because there's always white pieces and black pieces.
In order to create these branching narratives. However, at the end it's mentioned that if this thing does like consume realities and get powerful, maybe making more realities was a bad idea. Next we have Captain Kirby's proposal of O513. This is in reference to O513, 13th member of the O5 Council. This entire story is framed around the fact that the first 12 members of the O5 Council died, everyone except for 13, and it follows the new 1 through 12 trying to figure out if 13 may be responsible. This is because something referred to as a Caesar event happened, and no one knows what happened to the original O5 Council. It's then revealed at the end of the story that the administrator is talking directly to 13 and telling him to keep his head cool, as he doesn't want to reveal what actually happened. We then find out what actually happened, which is the original founder became upset with how the other 11 members were running their jobs, everyone except for 13, so he sends 13 away as he brings in the members 1 through 12 and detonates a nuclear warhead, destroying the O5 Council. Next we have Pedantic's proposal of Fishhook. Fishhook is written as a first-person memetic purgatory. What does that mean? Well, as you click on the story, it turns into a sort of ARG where you are experiencing first person that you are a researcher who tried to figure out what O1 was. You're then thrown into a locked room where you're supposedly in there for years, as they come to you every day and ask why you wanted to look at O1. You then wake up back at your desk, none of it happened, and it turns out that whenever you go to search O1, you are placed into this endless cycle until you've learned your lesson and decide to not look into O1. If nothing else, then this would serve as a ghost story in order to dissuade other people from trying to figure out what the real O1 is. Next is Not a Seagull's proposal of...
That's fucked up. Can you imagine just like... I mean, I get it. SCP is supposed to be like a very secretive group. And so if you're definitely trying to look at O1, they'll be like, why the fuck are you doing that, huh? Get this guy. Fucking throw him in a dark ass room naked and fucking keep asking him questions. Why are you looking at 01? Just like fucking, that's fucking torture in and of itself. And then fucking just waking up back at your desk being like, is that a fucking dream? And then going back and looking for 01, it's like fucking terrifying. Especially if you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't look. Maybe, especially if like wake up after the first thing and you're like, now I'm more interested in what 01 could be. And then you just like keep having the cycle happen to you again. If that was me, I'd just be like, you know what? Never mind. I ain't gonna look at shit.
Sky above the port. 5 kilometers south of Babylon, there is a cave, and inside it are 2 entities. One of them is a giant floating ball that resembles TV static, and the other is a sort of shadow that sits by the wall and looks at the ball. These 2 entities are supposedly old gods that may be responsible for the creation of the world, and the only thing that satiates them from destroying the world is to be entertained. Throughout history, groups such as the Order of the Black and White and Zoroastrian monks have made it their goal to continuously entertain this creature. So now it's the Foundation's turn. They originally decided to try to read it fake stories, but it gets upset as the thing only likes true thought out stories. It's then said that the Foundation began making up SCP entries in order to let it read them, and this satisfied it for a while. Eventually they figure out what to do. They let this creature read its own 01 file that forever loops on itself. And sure enough, as you're there reading it on the website, there is always an attachment file that you can open that simply reopens the top and the file goes on forever. So supposedly this worked in satiating this creature. However, the thing I mentioned about fake entries being made up implies that several of the SCP creatures that we know of may just be fakes in order to satisfy this old world god.
That'd be
Next, we have
interesting.
Ike's proposal.
I wonder what
of the solution.
I wonder
The
what
solution
ones
was
they
a
could be
device
if they're
that was
fake.
created in order to reset reality if ever needed. This was created by the Foundation.
Sorry, what was this one?
Proposal of the solution. The solution was a device that was created.
That is a peculiar name to name a file. The solution. That is something, you know, you'd only hear in like a certain history book talking about a certain second World War, you know? That's the kind of wording you'd use for when describing a certain type of war against members of different ethnic groups. Or something. Why would you name it that? That's like such a weird. I mean, I get it. It's whatever it is about possibly is like a final. Oh no! I backed myself into a corner about that one. I backed myself into a corner of that one. Okay. The final. Oh, I can't say it. Oh, Lord. Oh, I can't say it. Okay. But this has to... Fuck it, let's just watch. I can't even say it, dude, because I know I'm going to be screwed if I say it.
Created in order to reset reality if ever needed. This was created by the Foundation. Reason for it being, with so many world-ending creatures that you have, if any of them were about to totally wipe out humanity, it would be better to reset timeline to before it happened, and you could fill in the blanks. However, this device began to show signs of sentience, and that really scared the Foundation, so they tried to reboot it, and whenever they did, the device went ahead and started remaking reality itself. However, because no one entered in the rest of the information before it reset reality, there were several missing gaps, and that is the reality we currently exist in. The reason we don't know where humanity came from, or why so many anomalies exist, is because of these missing gaps that this computer left in. Next, we have Norbox's proposal of the Tendalos Trinity. The story opens where we get 3 slightly different explanations of what seems to be the same events. It describes SCP-01 as a sort of ghost shadow figure that moves through walls at any given rate. What we're actually seeing is the point of view of 3 different timelines, with each one watching their reality slowly bend towards another. and these humanoid creatures they're seeing are just people in the other timeline slowly passing into theirs. Turns out this had happened some time ago, and there were 3 timeline divergences at the point the SCP Foundation was made. However, the leaders of these 3 timelines agree that it would be best to put their resources together as their realities are crashing into each other and create one true reality. That reality would be the universe we exist in, and the reason it is SCP number 1 is because it explains where we came from. Next we have Tan Honey's second proposal.
Interesting.
That is of the Black Moon. This describes a sort of cycle that occurs. Supposedly there's this creature known as the Black Moon who has existed for as long as time itself has existed. At any time at once, it can turn any number of people into a sort of black solid material that then disintegrates and disappears. This power seemingly knows no bounds, and anytime this thing wants, all of humanity can be wiped out with one move. The only thing that can supposedly fight the Black Moon is its counterbalance, as it's known, also to us known as the Administrator. According to this, the Administrator existed before names existed, meaning there was so few people on Earth that they didn't even think to call each other anything. When he was a young boy, a man came up to him and told him that it was his responsibility to fight the Black Moon, and he gave him the powers of immortality. The Administrator has spent his entire existence trying to figure out a way to destroy the Black Moon and started the SCP Foundation some thousands of years ago as a means of doing so. There's a line said in this story that I think is kind of indicative of the role that the Administrator and the Black Moon take throughout this story, in which the Administrator is asking the person interviewing him if he's ever heard of Moby Dick, to which the interviewer says that he has, and it's a story of how Ahab's hunt for the whale was doomed from the start, to which the Administrator replied, "Oh, I just assumed Ahab didn't try hard enough." At the end of the story, we see that the Black Moon wins, wipes out
That's an interesting take, though.
to which the Administrator and the Black Moon get into a fight with each other. The Administrator barely prevails and uses the last of his powers that he stole from the Black Moon in order to create a new world with his final words, "Let there be light." Implication being that a new universe was created with a new Black Moon, and eventually the Administrator himself will become the old man who tells a young boy in primordial times that it is his job to fight the Black Moon, and the cycle will repeat on itself. Also, reading all of these proposals, the phrase "does the Black Moon howl" kept popping up. I did a bunch to try to figure out how this relates to stuff. That question's even asked in the story a few times, to which there's answers. So I would go back to the other 01 proposals that mention the Black Moon and enter in those answers, and I couldn't get any like secrets or something to pull out. I feel like the Black Moon is a more overarching thing in at least the 01 proposals than a lot of people currently know, so I'm going to look into it more, and if I find anything I'll make a video on it. Next we have Rajit's second proposal, and that is the conspiracy. In this, SCP-01 is the bullet that killed JFK, which, you know, something I'm totally impartial to and have no real opinions about. However, according to this, the reason that that moment is so important is because it was the last real conclusive event that ever happened on Earth. Supposedly 2 different sort of parallel timelines or realities co-interacted with each other at the same moment, and that's the reason that the true JFK shooting can never be found out, because it is simultaneously one thing as it is another. From this is where timelines branch off and the Mandela effect starts. It's where we see the rise of several 20th century mental health conditions, and it implies that because this shooting was so conspired and against itself, it created branching narratives for the world as a whole. So yeah. Next we have Arbalek's proposal of "You Are the Anomaly, Tumor of Worlds." Similar to World at Large, this story seems to be taking place from the perspective of another entity viewing humanity. According to this, the way that humans exist is different from every other thing that exists in the universe. Because we exist as such tangible, physical beings, every time that we make a decision, we create a separate branching universe. Those that have watched my other videos will know that that is string theory. Or, you know, if you already knew what string theory is, I mean, I'm not like the governing body on string theory. It's not, I didn't come up with it.
Dude, I gotta actually explore string theory. It's such an interesting concept, but it's so fucking confusing at the same time, I think.
In which the universe can't sustain the number of paradoxes we're creating, and we are going to destroy all life everywhere at once. Because we're so bad at existing. Next is McDoctorate's proposal of the placeholder. The placeholder starts by saying that 001 is exactly that, a placeholder, a spot that has no entry for it. And if you have any further information, contact the doctor linked here. Then whenever you contact the doctor linked here, you're taken to a file saying that this doctor doesn't actually exist and something weird's going on here with the 001. To spare some time, you eventually figure out that there are two entities before creation known as the Archvile and the Primordial. One creates universes and stories, and the other destroys them. At the end of the story, the two agree to rewrite reality and come together starting at the beginning. The beginning being SCP-001, however they can't come to a consensus and decide to simply reset things to the way that they were. However, when you get to the end and it simply takes you back to the beginning, you realize that you are reading through the circular story of these two old world gods resetting the universe only to decide that it's not good enough and then resetting again, and so on and so forth forever. And then finally we have Rounderhouse's disposal of Memento Mori. I should also mention that Memento Mori means a harbinger or sign of coming death. According to this, SCP-01 is the administrator's mansion located in Virginia. Supposedly this is the site that the O5 Council resides in. Every single room of this mansion is in itself anomalous and describes something about that member.
Can I just say real quick that I like the idea that like sometimes SCP-001 could literally just be a simple thing, like you said, a placeholder, or it's the actual like killing of the O5 Council, or again it's the administrator's mansion. Like that has to be interesting, because when you look at everything else, like the other single digit SCPs, at least in the single digit range, they're always like the fucking worst types of creatures, or like the most craziest anomalies. The most craziest anomalies. And yet, here's SCP-001 just being like the murder of the O5, or the administrator's mansion, and just like simple things and everything. If it's just like, if it's a real simple thing, that'd be a fucking huge. Oh, fuck, I can't even talk. I'm fucking yawning so much. That'd be a huge, interesting concept to have, just like, oh, the big old secret 001 SCP, it's just fucking the murder of the O5. Meanwhile, every other SCP is like a fucking monster, a bowl of candy, fucking a young girl that can turn into, or that can turn shit into nature, fucking a camera, a plague doctor, shit like that. It's so fucking weird. And it'd be kind of disappointing, but at the same time, I can see eventually, at one point, someone coming to a conclusion that, yeah, this needs to be the 001, and then everything else. It'd be an interesting end to the SCP universe, but let's be honest, there's no way the SCP universe is ever going to end, since so many people are just going to expand upon it. What the fuck? Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. I'm back. Sorry, guys. I'm back. Got me some juice. It's Ocean Spray. Cran watermelon. I got my little Shake Shack wine glass here with me. Such funny. I don't even know they sell wine at Shake Shack, but then Shake Shack. Well, it's fun. My mind is just not here today. Where's the fucking lid? Oh. God, I hope I don't fucking spill this all over my shit and I'd be fucking pissed off. Let me go back. There we go. Almost choked on that one. Just like your mom was choking on these nuts. Alrighty.
The 05 Council. You can even read into it and read the entries for what
The
each
fuck?
term is and try to deduce
Oh, I gotta
from
watch
what
that
the
later.
05 member might be. However, we're following from the perspective
Are we almost
of the
over?
13th
Oh,
member,
fuck.
to which he then goes out to the back of the house and sees a graveyard. There, in the graves, are the bodies of all 12 05 members with their specific names and descriptions. It's said there that the descriptions change depending on how the reader feels about the person buried there. We then find out at the very end of this story that this 13th member we're reading from the perspective of is Dr. Gears, with the final part of the story being the administrator inviting Dr. Gears to death, as Dr. Gears is reading the tombstones of the other 12 members, and when he gets to his own tombstone, it simply says Memento Mori. The implication being that this SCP-01 could be viewed as the end of the Foundation, or at least the 05 Council itself, and we see one of its members, one of its first members, Dr. Gears, being reminded and then confronting his own death. And that is it for the 01 proposals. Now, this is an ongoing thing, and more keep being added. So if more are added in the future, enough to make another video on, then I certainly will and cover all the new ones. However, this is my first branch into SCP content that's not also iceberg content, so very sincerely, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Like I mentioned before, I'm blown away with how well I'm doing, and it's all thanks to you guys. It really does mean the most. I hope that you enjoyed. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone who watched. Massive thank you to all my subscribers. Giant thank you to all my Patreons, and a very, very huge thank you to my top tier patrons. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Pef. Thank you, Eddie.
That was an interesting learn, and now I got more things to search about for the SCP lore tonight. SCP-0 and literally the origin or death of the universe. SCP-002 living room, haha. For some reason, the fact that the SCP Foundation put someone through an incinerator just to see if they die is funny to me. I just realized the reason why a record is an 001 proposal is because it was forced to the top of the list. Therefore, being a 011 anomaly. Oh, that's interesting. When even glossed over, one of the coolest part about the factory proposal is that not only the supposed origins, it was not only the supposed origins of the Foundation, it was also the supposed origins of every other GOI in the canon. What GOI? What the hell's a GOI? Hold on, GOI. Oh, hold on, shut up. SCP. Oh, groups of interest. Oh. I'm stupid.
Dear Penguins.
Shut up. We're not here for you yet. The GOI in canon. From Marshall, Carter, and Dark to the Church of the Broken God, they were all once part of the group who initially infiltrated the factory. They separated into different groups with different ideologies. Ooh. Alright, that's way interesting. Now I gotta look into that too. SCP-001, good boy in a nutshell. Hey, what if I pour concrete on people Oregon? What? That's funny. Hearing Wendigoon saying he's blown away by having 7,000 subscribers really puts into perspective how fast he grew. You just have all the success, man. Okay, that's awesome. It's more. Hey all, lockpicking lawyer here. I've been enlisted by the SCP Foundation to unlock this unpickable lock. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I like to imagine that 001 is something completely innocent, like a sandwich that always reappears after being eaten or something. I love the idea of SCP-J-001, a red button that no one knows what to do and everyone just scared to press it to discover. I can't get over how much I love Gate Guardian as an SCP. Just a fucking massive guardian, and the only containment procedure are stay away and, I don't know, pray, I guess. It can somewhat defy your free will by imprinting thoughts in you to leave, but even if you come close enough, it annihilates you at an atomic level with a sword measured in kilometers long. That's one thing I do like about the Gate Guardian too. Just an actual kind of like anomaly. Who are you? I'm SCP-001. Do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down? The idea of SCP-001 is something that would be seen as an anomaly for a few centuries ago, but can be explained now like a one-way mirror. Would give the Foundation hope that we could find the answers to other SCPs in the future. That's interesting. Alright, what's next? No. Oh, wouldn't it? Well, yeah, okay, we're going to talk about my favorite SCP, SCP-3000. That's going to be by the Exploring series. I like this. Oh, and then we'll watch the other ones, because I really like this one.
3000.
Not the Shesha. I love this.
The SCP Foundation is aware of a number of entities that could be considered gods, or godlike in some way. Some of these are actually contained by them, while others are uncontainable, either existing outside of our physical dimension, or for some other reason.
I love the Exploring series. He's such a great YouTuber, man. He like covers so much shit.
As they represent little more than threats to our existence. There is an exception, however, in SCP-3000. Its status as something godlike is debatable, which we'll discuss later, but it is a rare example of a thaumiel entity, an anomalous creature that the Foundation utilizes to help their operations. Simply put, SCP-3000 is a massive eel located in the Bay of Bengal, near India. 3000's full size is unknown, but is believed to be between 600 and 900 kilometers long,
Jesus.
ending in a head 2.5 meters in diameter.
Oh, shit.
3000 is not
It's a
necessarily
big old boy.
contained, per se, but since it rarely moves, the Foundation simply patrols the region of the bay where it's located, and prevents any diving expeditions in the area. It was discovered in 1971, after a number of Bangladeshi fishermen went missing after drifting near the Indian coast, and the Foundation stepped in to investigate. Its biology is not well understood by the Foundation, but they hypothesize that it doesn't actually require any sustenance in order to continue living, but it is carnivorous. It's unknown exactly what happens to prey it consumes, but during feeding, 3000 excretes a thin layer of a viscous substance that the Foundation has dubbed Y909. Its existence as a massive eel, hundreds of kilometers long, would certainly classify it as an SCP alone, much like SCP-169.
Hold up. Is SCP-169... Am I fucked? Which one was that?
We've discussed cognitohazards a few times
SCP-169.
anomalous effects that can alter an individual's mind.
Which one was this one?
Or way of thinking. And SCP-3000 itself is a cognitohazard.
Oh, it's the Leviathan.
Direct observation of it will result in head pain, paranoia, fear,
yeah, wasn't it like a huge
panic,
fucking like almost
and memory
island-like
loss or
creature?
alteration. And even being in a certain vicinity of the eel can result in these effects. These effects are further described in a log discussing the initial discovery and encounter with SCP-3000. A team descended in a submersible, and all of them were feeling uneasy.
Fuck, I'd be feeling uneasy too if I fucking dived down and was supposed to see a giant fucking eel.
Missing something, but he couldn't figure out what. He begins to act more erratically as they descend, expressing doubts about what exactly he's supposed to do down there. Other members of the team began to express similar feelings. When they finally saw the body of the eel, the erratic individual began whimpering and had to be sedated as he muttered the word "no" over and over. When they finally approached the head, several other members were complaining about feeling hazy unsure of what they were doing here. The captain wrote it off as nitrogen intoxication.
Dude, we're dealing with a
SCP-3000
fucking...
turned its head to look at them, and the sedated member began barking and shrieking, claiming that it was in its head, until he smashed his face into one of the potholes, and they had to ascend due to the cracks.
Jesus.
He had mortally injured himself, and as he lay dying, he said, "There's nothing, nothing, nothing." Despite this incident, a diving expedition was ordered to personally assess the creature and investigate the source of the thick gray fluid that had been observed around its head.
God damn.
3 members of MTF Orion 9, Kingfishers, were sent down. The water was dark and cold, which was to be expected, but other problems began almost immediately as the team becomes confused over their call signs, both mixing up who has what designation, and one of them even being confused by the word designation. The leader also addresses someone back at the command station who had been dead for 2 years. Regardless, command tells the team to continue towards the entity, but each of them are completely confused about where they are. As they continue approaching, one of the members begins to utter ominous phrases concerning oblivion and dark
Jesus
eyes.
Christ, that's frightening.
SCP-3000 begins to rapidly approach them, and their radios go silent for 30 seconds. When they come back, it's clear that the team is in chaos, and one of the members has been eaten.
Jesus.
The leader seems to have completely forgotten who he is, where he is, and what he's doing. He soon gets eaten as well.
Oh my God.
Only one of the team remains, and he still seems to be somewhat coherent, claiming that it's extremely difficult to form thoughts while near 3000.
Oh my God.
He says that it's coiled inside of his head, and that it's just sitting there in front of him.
Dude, that'd be fucking terrifying, just having that thing stare you down.
Around its head, and he goes to retrieve a sample, sending it up towards the surface. He finishes by saying not to send anyone else out here. His breathing could be heard over his radio for 3 days before ceasing.
Jesus.
I mentioned at the start that SCP-3000 is a thaumial entity, meaning it somehow assists the SCP Foundation in their operations. And you may be wondering how a giant eel that messes with your head does so. The answer is in the gray fluid excreted from the entity, called the Y909 compound. The Foundation utilizes a large number of amnestics during their work, chemicals that cause an individual to forget certain things. These chemicals are vital for keeping the secrecy of the Foundation and the SCPs intact, as well as helping many SCP personnel cope with things they have experienced. For a number of years, the Foundation's amnestics were rudimentary, breaking down fairly quickly in storage, causing a number of side effects, and had often questionable efficacy overall. The inclusion of the Y909 compound has greatly increased the stability and effectiveness of the Foundation's amnestics, however, allowing them to store for much longer, a significant decrease in side effects, an increase in suggestibility and memory clearance, and little to no intrusive memories years after their use.
Jesus.
The Foundation has come to completely rely on the Y909 compound, with no means to synthetically reproduce it, and so the ATZAC protocol is introduced. The protocol is simple enough. It involves deliberately feeding a sedated D-class to SCP-3000, which causes it to excrete the Y909 compound. A specialized team of deep-sea divers then approach the entity within 2.5 hours after feeding, during which its cognitohazard effects are lessened. They collect as much as they can of the fluid and return to the surface. The rest of the SCP-3000 report concerns 2 doctors, a researcher, Dr. Krishnamurthy, and his staff clinical psychologist, Dr. Manava. The psychologist was assigned to the researcher.
Why are we only getting a picture of, what was his name? It was Krishnamurthy. Why are we only getting a picture about him?
The researcher begins discussing how he feels tired, and his body is beginning to feel disconnected from his mind.
Jesus.
He's forgetting
That's
things
me every
about
time
his
I have to go
work
to.
and
I
his
wake
life.
up in the morning to go to
He's been
work.
having dreams featuring people he doesn't recognize and places he's never been. It's clear that his proximity to 3000 is greatly affecting his memories, as he is unsure if he's even married or if he has children, despite having 5 of them. He does see 3000 in his mind, however, and at this point he begins discussing Anantashesha, the king of serpents in Hinduism,
It's such a
that
cool
lies
name.
beneath the god Vishnu in the cosmos. He recalls that his mother
Dude,
told
I
him
love
that when the light of
I love the
universe had gone
I
out,
love God lore,
Anantashesha
and
would be
the
all
Hindu
that was
gods
left,
are like so.
past the end
I
of
haven't
time.
read up a lot about them, but I like a lot
He
of them that I've
believes that
heard about a little
SCP-3000
bit of.
is Anantashesha, a god that exists across all of time simultaneously. He says, in defiance of the nothingness that comes after this, all of this, there is Anantashesha. There's a chance that my memories might live on, that I might be remembered, like the memories I've seen have been through me. I don't have proof of this, but when I looked into its eyes and saw what it showed me, I was afraid. I'm merely a mediocre man, Anand. This was a fear that I refused to acknowledge for years, a fear of irrelevance, that no one will know who I am when I die. Afraid of being forgotten, afraid of my life being meaningless, afraid of being alone, afraid of dying.
Jesus, dude, this is getting
There's
deep
a
and
terror within me that
terrifying.
I cannot reconcile, Anand. I won't lie to you and tell you that the maw of the Naga does not terrify me as well. But between this and the infinite dark I have gazed into, I have made up my mind. Dr. Krishnamurthy was held in containment for 2 days before being released. 3 hours later, he approaches the airlock to the submarine while
some
weeping
existential crisis
prepares
shit,
to
man. It
open
makes me fucking
Proximity alarms
feel
begin to blare
actual
as
fear because I worry about
SCP-3000
this shit
approaches
on a
the
daily
submarine.
basis. Sometimes it's fucking
The
terrifying.
doctor puts on
Or like
a
I'll just be at
diving
work
suit
thinking
and
about this. I'm like,
exits
oh
the
fuck
submarine
me,
before
I
anyone
shouldn't be
can
thinking
stop
about
him.
this, and I just like my heart nearly stops.
3000 approaches him and opens its jaws wide. The last thing the doctor says is that he was wrong, and sobs as the eel consumes him. The rest of the crew begin preparing to carry out the ATSAC protocol. We're given some excerpts from Dr. Manava's journal, in which he discusses that he now has to figure out why Dr. Krishnamurthy became suicidal, and how to prevent it from happening to any of the other personnel. He writes that he's not a very religious man, and doesn't believe SCP-3000 to be anything other than an anomalous eel. He racks his brain thinking about his father and his teachings of Hinduism, but cannot recall much, although he blames this less on the eel and more on his own willful forgetfulness. He was allowed to look through Krishnamurthy's effects and keep any that he wished, and so for some reason he decides to take a statue of the god Ganesh. Manava is aware that his continual proximity to SCP-3000 is draining his memories, both from his youth and more recently. He makes an attempt to learn some Hindu poems and songs, but can't seem to memorize any of them. We're given a memorandum from the site director that elaborates somewhat on the Y-909 compound and the ATSAC protocol. The Foundation originally believed it to be blood, but it's more akin to a prion slurry. Prolonged exposure to the compound
The hell's
is
a
pretty
pro-
similar to prolonged exposure to be blood, but it's more akin to a prion slurry.
I'm sorry, a what? Prion slur. What the fuck is a prion slurry? Take that over now. Prion, hold on, what is it? I'll just look at the definition of what a prion is. And there's a prion. Oh, a prion is a misfolded protein that can induce misfolding of normal variants of the same protein and trigger cellular death. Prions cause prion disease known as transmissible spongiform that are fatal transmissible neurodegenerative diseases in humans and animals. Oh, that actually makes sense for this SCP because I mean it's supposed to be fucking with the people's minds, right? So, I mean if it's excreting this stuff into the water and then divers are going into the water, it's definitely like affecting them a lot because they're not just like it's getting all around them in a sense, and it could just this is an SCP we talk about could be infecting them through just being around them. The fuck. But it's an interesting thing. Let's continue.
Originally believed it to be blood, but it's more akin to a prion slurry. Prolonged exposure to the compound is pretty similar to prolonged exposure to 3000.
See? Okay, yeah, see?
Some of the biologists believe that when SCP-3000 consumes a human, it is breaking down some part of their brains that makes them sapient.
It's terrifying.
And the residual substance from this process is Y909.
That's interesting.
They also found that SCP-3000 is not digesting these humans at all, and their bodies are still inside of it. In other words, SCP-3000 is capable of breaking down and devouring the human mind, causing them to forget their own existence. And the Foundation is purposefully encouraging this in order to create powerful amnestics.
Interesting.
The Ethics Committee and the Classification Committee are looking for ways to make this more tolerable, but since the Foundation really depends on these amnestics, the process continues.
Makes sense.
The final log is another journal page from Dr. Manava. He has been spending a great amount of time studying the effects of SCP-3000, but still has no idea what would cause a sane man to step out of an airlock into its mouth. Earlier that week, he had knocked over a picture of him and his family, and found that there was writing on the other side, with his name, his wife's name, and his daughter's name. However, the writing was in Dr. Krishnamurthy's hand, not his own. This puzzled Manava, and he began to be stressed by the uncertainty of it. Finally, he went into the personnel archives and discovered the truth. The woman was in fact Krishnamurthy's first wife, and the girl was one of his daughters.
Oh.
Manava had believed that they were his wife and daughter,
Shit.
but more than that, he had memories of them that he now realized were in fact Krishnamurthy's memories. This realization causes him to finally understand exactly what SCP-3000 does. It breaks down and destroys human consciousness, the spark of thought that makes us unique and what we believe to be a soul, and then scatters it. It leaves a husk behind that is nothing more than electrical signals passing through matter that will someday become inert.
That's terrifying.
He writes, "If even I can't remember myself, how can I expect anyone else to remember me? I have forgotten my own life,
Close the
and I
window.
am strangely apathetic at this revelation. I will fade into the darkness, as thousands before me have, and thousands after me will. No one will care, as I am forgotten. I do not despair for my own sake, but for us all, you and I, we will all face obliteration. I am not important. You are not important. Vast droplets of irrelevancy stretching eons in the sea of time. We may fight against it, but our enemy is inevitability. I do not think that the eel is a Nantashesha. I don't think it would matter if it was. What is clear to me now, as I feel myself coming apart, is not that the eel is some mythological creature, or divine serpent. Perhaps it's just a primitive creature that eluded us, holding no malice. Perhaps it really is a primordial deity, harboring resent beneath the surface. The eel is not the harbinger of my demise, or humanity's doom. The eel is not the end of all things. It only shows us what the end looks like. And in spite of everything we might believe, every ideal we hold or providence we pray for, I know this much is true for all of us. Our end will be a forgotten one. Dr. Manava
Jesus,
was
this
later
one's
discovered near the
I always
airport
forget how deep
after
this one is.
consuming a significant amount of raw Y909. Unresponsive, he was moved to Site 151 for analysis. SCP-3000 is a dark SCP, and the concept of destroying memories and human consciousness makes what would otherwise just be an enormous eel much more interesting. Existential dread affects many people from time to time throughout their life.
Oh yeah, it does.
And it's not unusual to be concerned with who will remember you, what will they remember you for, and ultimately, your purpose here. Dr. Manava was probably right, that SCP-3000 is not a deity that exists throughout all of time, but it is certainly a powerful entity. There are many SCPs that can kill, or maim, or horrify humans, but there aren't that many that can destroy what it means to be human. And that makes SCP-3000 pretty unique.
And fucking downright terrifying, honestly. It's like one thing I want to compare the this to is the fact that I think the other day I was not the other day, it was a while ago, but I think I was having a conversation about how Alzheimer's affects the brain, and in a sense it's its own kind of frightening death, because like you're not dying from it, but in a sense what makes you you is every memory you had, every happy joyous occasion, every sad occasion, every creative idea, everything about you forget, and it's terrifying. It's also terrifying for families, because it's like we're watching this person who was so full of life forget everything that made them amazing, and it's downright sad and terrifying. And that's why I kind of would compare this to, because I mean it's destroying down human thought. I mean, it's as they said, he said it was scattering memories, and it's like, yeah, but at the same time you're kind of forgetting who you were, what made you you. Someday, soon, perhaps in 40 years, there will be no one alive who has ever known me. That's when I will be truly dead, when I exist in no one's memory. I thought a lot about how someone very old is the last living individual to have known some person or a cluster of people. When that person dies, the whole cluster dies too, vanishes from the living memory. I wonder who that person will be for me, whose death will make me truly dead. Ivan D. Yalom. Oh, Irvin D. Yalom. It's fucking interesting to think about. God, now it's gonna make me think about some existential shit. Alright, moving on. What's the next one? Oh, it was just straight up SCP lore. SCP Explained. Oh, we should watch some of the SCP Explained animation. I like that. Or, so yeah, we already seen this. It was Windigoon. Let's see. Some nice shorts. Let's see. So you think you know SCP lore part 1. Alright. Oh, Jesus. We'll do that. Okay. Let's see if we can get it. Level easy. Alright, let's see. Come on, show me, damn it. Show me. What was it? Come on. Oh. Okay. Oh, I'm fucking stupid. Okay. It was actually showing what it was. Oh, I'm dumb. The fuck is that? The SCP character, the owner. The fuck was that? What the fuck is this trying to say? That like the monster ones are just are made by, or like the cosmic ones are made by nerds? The guy who created SCP-173, hold on. SCP-173, oh, I gotta look that up now, Jesus. SCP-173. Which one was this one? Oh, okay, my bad. It's the most Giga Chad. Dude literally started the whole SCP thing back in 2007. He expected it to be gone in like a week, and look at it now. It's not how powerful the creature is, it's about how good it is. Wise guy. SCP-049 is just a gentleman disguise of its own medicine. The current owner of SCP-173, the original owner of SCP-173. Hold on. SCP explained in order. Active as of July 23rd. Oh, 23. Creatures of the end of time. Oh, that was interesting. I like that. Okay, well, maybe we'll do this one. But we'll look at this little thing, view playlist. I like how 173 is the first one since it technically began the whole thing, I guess. So that's nice. But, let's see. Should we start in order or should we just look for the good ones? There's already the intercession one. I kind of want to see that one too. The Shy Guy. Why? The Stairwell. What happened to Site 13? Oh, Jesus. The Final Battle at Site 13. 939. 035. 2935. 1000. 4999. 066. Eric's Toy. Frightening Lost Ronald Reagan VHS tape you must watch. 1981. And 095. The Young Girl. The ways to try to hard to destroy reptile. The Tickle Watcher. Which one's the real? 001. The Devour World, the Door to Another World. The Suitcase. Cthulhu. Fernand the Cannibal. Anti-meme / unknown. In the Eyes of the Beholder. Oh, that's another fucking one I've heard about. Red Reality. The Ouroboros Cycle. Deus Ex Machina. Garfield. Sagan 13. The Clockworks. Mr. Life and Mr. Death. I'm at the center of everything that happens to me. Yet another murder monster. Jesus, there's a lot. The Chaos Insurgency. 1765 Sisters. God. The Yule Man. Mysterious Tunnels in Antarctica. The Flesh That Hates. Cain and Abel. Oh, Where the Dragons Went. That one's always a sad one. The Mannequin. The Hitchhiker. Global Occult Coalition Explained. 3D Species. Oh, look, there's Dr. Bright. Alexandria Eternal. What happened to Site 13, the full story compilation. Oh, that one's... Fuck, we'll watch that one next too. Jesus. Oh, there's a lot of good ones, damn it. Like the Major Alexei Beltrov. I remember that one. That one was about the Russian soldier in like a huge suit. Atonement, the Ouroboros cycle, London, Desire camera. Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, last one. The Statistic Madman Party Crasher, Become Me, Killer Living Graffiti, the Furries. Oh God. Tea House Predator. I don't know why that reminds me of the TikTok. That reminds me of the TikTok song where it's like, "Hi, I'm Amanda." And it's just fucking alien god crash lands to Earth. What happened? What actually is the pestilence? End of the world. The O5 Council. Dude, there's a lot. Okay, hold on. Oh, this one was just a bunch of other ones. Hold on. The Star, the Hateful. Oh, God. There's so many good ones. You know what? Let's see. We'll actually start. You know what? Fuck it. Since we just got done watching Anata Shesha, we'll do. Let's see. We'll actually start with.
SCP-1730 is one of the biggest threats the Foundation has ever faced. SCP-1730 does not exist. It was June 5th when the compound was first discovered, a large complex of structures in rural Texas, about 15 kilometers northwest of the Mexican border, located in Big Bend Ranch State Park. It was easily the biggest structure in the area, but there was no record of any such structure ever being built. A massive network of power stations, containment facilities, and research buildings, SCP-1730 looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. The exterior was degraded, but the building was still operating. A power generator had been running for an indeterminate amount of time. Even as the infrastructure degraded, power flickered through the site and fuel leaked frequently, but there was one detail that attracted the attention of SCP brass. SCP-1730 bore identifying markings linking it to Foundation Site 13, a research facility that was marked for construction near Nome, Alaska. But Site 13 had never been built, having been abandoned in the planning stages. So why is it in the middle of Texas, fully constructed and long abandoned? The Foundation needed to know more, and they needed their best to investigate. It was time to call in the Game Wardens. Apollo 3, the mobile task force used to investigate dangerous sites, was brought in, and 5 elite agents were briefed and sent in: Ross, Houston, Noah, Ohalo, and Vigo. It didn't take long for them to discover
some interesting
that
names,
something
but
was
that's
very
kind of
wrong
nice.
with the site of SCP-1730. The facility was located in the middle of South Texas, but the local flora surrounding it was native to Nome, Alaska. Something had transported a building that shouldn't exist to another place and time. Commander Ross ordered his men to enter, with Houston taking the lead. They discovered that the entry led down a long staircase. They descended slowly, following a strange light that no one could identify, but had a sudden shock when they discovered that the basement of the staircase was missing. The light suddenly stopped, and it became so dark that it was impossible to see what lay beyond the staircase. Upon probing the inky black void at the base of the staircase, they determined it wasn't a fog or shadow. It was a liquid, and it was rising.
Oh,
Ross
fuck.
ordered the men to pull back, but Houston was in too deep. He couldn't break free from the inky black liquid. The men pulled him away and got him free, but his legs were gone. Not ripped off because there was no blood anywhere, smoothly cut off, as if they were never there. And as they put Houston down, he stood up on phantom legs. He didn't feel any pain, but everyone could tell something was very wrong with this place. And the messages they started seeing on the wall made clear they weren't the only ones who knew it. What happened to Site 13? Death here. Not my body. Bleed. There had been other people or things inside SCP-1730, and they wanted anyone who entered to know that this was a very dangerous place to be. As they advanced down the hall back toward the entrance, they saw what looked like a person in the distance, but as they approached, it became clear it wasn't another explorer. It was an old, horribly disfigured corpse, seemingly attached to the wall, not by chains, but fused to the wall in unnatural ways. At first, the team seemed unconcerned, recognizing the corpse as someone named Zachary. Fortunately, command back at the base realized this as the effects of some sort of cognitohazard, a mental infection in the base. They uploaded a filter to their helmets, and the team recoiled in horror at the sight in front of them. But the horrors were just beginning. They turned around to see a shimmering humanoid entity in the hallway behind them. As it approached, its footsteps distorted the hallway around. It pulled AP3 Noah toward it without touching him, and as the soldier was pulled into its clutches, his body started to distort. Vigo was next, being grabbed by the arm by a long appendage, and his arm started to change color and distort. But the Foundation sent Apollo 3 in prepared. Houston produced a portable reality anchor designed to handle reality warping entities, and with a flash of red light, the creature was revealed. It was a horribly elongated humanoid that only existed for a second before the reality anchor erased it and restored the hallway to its normal state. Vigo would recover, with the strange red color in his arm fading eventually. Noah wasn't so lucky. He was already dead and had been fused into the wall just like the unfortunate corpse.
Oh,
These
Jesus.
horrors had been encountered just by trying to return to the entrance, so it was clear the only smart thing to do was to descend further into the facilities and get some answers. As they advanced, not encountering any other supernatural entities,
It's like
they saw
Dante's
more
Inferno,
evidence
where you can't go back. You just you have to continue to go down in order to exit hell. It's like that, huh?
of the dark things that had occurred in Site 13. The infirmary had been torn apart, a cafeteria had been melted into slag, and a large group of containment cells ended with a section called Olympia Class. But while most of the other cells were standard-sized, these were over 100 meters high. What had the Foundation, or whoever ran this place, been keeping in these cells? They would get more answers as they made their way down the hall, where they saw a single television still working and illuminating the hallway. At first, the television flickered, but the image soon cleared, and the agents were able to see what it was broadcasting. It was the interior of a containment cell, and there was someone in it, and they recognized them as one of the most dangerous beings contained by the SCP Foundation, Bobble the Clown. A predatory supernatural clown that inhabits a children's TV show. Bobble the Clown was broadcast by an unknown source and could only be seen by children under 10. Originally seeming to be a normal kids show about a clown, every episode eventually devolved into the murderous Bobble teaching kids how to do horrible things like arson and torture. The Foundation eventually captured and isolated Bobble's broadcast, but the clown remained hostile and vicious. But not here. As the team talked to the Bobble trapped in the mysterious Site 13, it became clear that this clown was broken by whatever it had experienced.
Jesus.
It rambled, it hid from the camera, and it was clearly terrified as it told the team about the horrors of the site, and it seemed to recognize the agents as something familiar, but not completely familiar. It claimed to be able to smell them, and it said they smelled different. As Bobble rambled on, the agents learned about a man named Emerson, who ran the site. Like the Foundation, he was obsessed with containing the strange and dangerous entities in the world. But unlike the Foundation, he didn't just want to protect the world from them. He hated them. The entities in Site 13 didn't even have numbers. Emerson wanted to use them up however he wanted and to dispose of them. It's something Bobble called the meat grinder. Entities that outlived their usefulness were taken down below and none were ever heard from again. It was directly counter to every SCP Foundation policy, but this site had clearly been performing these horrible experiments for years. How? And why hadn't anyone heard of it? The team continued to make their way into the facility, but their signals were lost as they entered the cryogenics unit. By the time
I'm going fucking crazy, chat. Oh, Jesus.
My bad. I was gonna show you something.
What? Was that you knocking?
Yeah. I did throw bar.
I'll turn that down. Sorry, because Twitch will have my ass.
So throw bars like when you jump
Yeah.
and you just throw it and you let it be.
Is that
on
you
its side.
knocking?
Yeah.
Okay, thank God. I thought that was the fucking video.
So go.
Jesus. Scared the shit out of me, chat. Oh my God.
contact had been restored, they were no longer alone. There were survivors, both agents of the Foundation and survivors of the facility, and they were angry. With no way out and massively outnumbered, they called for backup. Mobile Task Force T5, also known as Samsara, was reserved for the heavy-duty missions. They're an elite group of practically immortal cyborgs fashioned from the flesh of a god and equipped with further cybernetic enhancements.
Okay, I've got to now know about this if they're from the flesh of a god.
Hazards. They were sent in through a drainage gate to look for survivors and neutralize whatever lay within. They didn't know what to expect, but they knew one thing. No one who had been sent in had come out. It wasn't long before they realized how dangerous this mission would be. As they came across some large gated drainage pipes, they could see at least 20 charred bodies of humanoids pushed up against the gate, some reaching their hands through. Whatever had happened in Site-13, these unfortunate beings had been desperate to escape. As they made their way down the drainage pipe, they could feel it getting hotter, as if they were nearing an energy source. And there was one other odd thing about the pipe. It was draining inward, not out. They made their way into a control room where many of the consoles had been destroyed. Looking through a window, their view was obscured by a mysterious black mass. On the control panels, they could read terms like incinerator and body pit access. They split up trying to find answers, but found many of their accesses blocked by the black mass. As the T5 task force argued over their next move, they were startled by a sudden jolt. The giant mass had started moving. The team watched as the mass spun, revealing a giant turbine, which turned the inky substance into a fine slurry that was then scorched by giant streaks of fire. One of the T5 shot open the glass chamber, allowing the team to get closer and blasting them with a wave of heat. As they descended into the chamber, they could see a massive plant-like structure overhead, which started to shake. Suddenly, thousands of glowing pods were released from the massive plant, and each one lit up and let the team view the chamber more clearly. But it was what was inside the pods that was more disturbing. Each pod had a humanoid shape inside, seemingly reaching toward the team until they hit the slurry below and the shadows went dark. The team descended to investigate the slurry when something started to leak out of the walls. Looking at it, they could see something moving within. One of the team members picked up the wriggling object out of the black liquid and it took a bite of his hand. It was a leech, and there were thousands more of them moving toward the slurry, consuming it. And as the leeches ate, they started growing. They seemed to be moving in unison, communicating with a larger being lurking at the base of the slurry. A larger leech, a queen, or something else. The team wasn't sticking around to find out. They beat a hurried escape from the leech room, finding themselves in another hallway. Whatever the black substance was, the entities who had been here had used it, scrawling blood on the walls over and over again. Occasionally, they would come across a drained corpse covered in the black fluid. Had the leeches bled them dry? The facility was so sprawling that the team knew if they wanted any chance of navigating it safely, they needed to get the lay of the land. They needed to find the control center. The door read stairs to cryonics, and the leeches were nowhere to be found. It seemed like a safe path, but as soon as the team entered, the temperature dropped drastically to well below where it would be safe for a human to survive. The team's internal heating system kicked in to save their lives, but it wasn't the only threat. The team was about to encounter exactly what Site-13 was keeping locked up. As soon as they entered the room, sound ceased to work. The filters in their gear were overloaded, and the team saw warnings around the room. Silence. Don't look. A massive multi-limbed figure emerged, with each of its 60 arms moving independently. The creature had no head, but a large circular structure covered with ancient glowing symbols. Whatever it was ancient, all-powerful, and deadly. The team scrambled to get away as the glyphs on the creature burned white hot. Anyone who touched it was burned. Anyone who looked too long at it felt their optical implants burn out. The symbols on the creature were indecipherable, but one word was clear and printed in English: Emerson. Site-13 was from another world, another timeline where the SCP Foundation evolved into something horrible, ruled over by Elliot Emerson. It tortured and captured its beings and eventually killed most of them in the horrors of the incinerators. When an escape threatened to destroy the facility, Emerson successfully activated a device that removed the facility from their world into ours. Of course, as any avid follower of the SCP Foundation will know, there's far more to the story than this. Emerson may have been the start of Site-13's problems, but he was far from the end. It's the mission of the century, a daring rescue into the depths of one of the most dangerous locations in the multiverse. Site-13, otherwise known as SCP-1730, When the impossible Site-13 was first discovered, multiple mobile task forces were sent to plumb its depths, and none returned. They were greeted to a labyrinthine nightmare, littered with deadly cognitohazards, escaped SCPs, and mysterious, murderous leeches. Some were trapped along with the civilians they were sent to rescue. Others were killed or changed in unimaginable ways. Mobile Task Force Apollo 3, also known as the Game Wardens, had been sent in on a rescue mission when they encountered a horrifying sight: the captured broadcast of Bobble the Clown, a dangerous SCP known for corrupting and destroying children through its deadly messages. But this Bobble was different. Much like everything from Site-13, this Bobble came from an entirely different dimension, and he had terrifying information to relay. In the universe where Site-13 originated, the site's psychopathic director, one Elliot Emerson, had struck a deal with the Global Occult Coalition, a controversial government group who intends to protect humanity by killing anomalies rather than containing them. Emerson had converted his site into an unethical, unrestrained slaughterhouse and was incinerating SCPs by the hundred in a so-called body pit. But Emerson's game of death came back and bit him, snapping the threads of reality and turning the entire site into a dimensionally displaced super anomaly. The Game Wardens realized they were in way over their heads. Their chances of surviving this place were dropping by the second, and if they wanted any chance of succeeding in their mission, they needed backup. So Site Command called in MTF Tau 5, aka Samsara. Calling in Samsara for a run-of-the-mill collection mission is like using a bazooka to kill a housefly. But for a case as severe as 1730, their skills were not only nice to have, but vital. Samsara are among the best of the best, immortal cybernetic clones forged from the flesh of a god, equipped with weaponry and technology that could surpass even that of other elite Mobile Task Force units. The 4 members of Samsara are so adept at what they do, they earned the nickname Power Rangers among their peers. The remaining Game Wardens knew that with Samsara on the case, they may actually survive this thing after all, and they just needed to hold out. Samsara arrived on site not long after, packing some serious technology.
I like how the Samsara design had changed from what was for sure the first video to this one.
Heat-resistant plating, and built-in scramble adaptations within their eyes to ward off the deadly cognitohazards. Everyone involved was in for the fight of their lives. The 4 Samsara agents, Irantu, Nanku, Munru, and Onru, entered via a drainage gate in one of the office buildings above ground and began their descent inside. After observing numerous charred bodies, they deduced that there must have been a massive incinerator somewhere on site. Emerson's incinerator. Theorizing that this was connected to the body pit they kept hearing about, they descended further, feeling the temperature rise as they did so. Due to the anomalous nature of 1730, nothing inside made any kind of logical sense. Caused by a reality warping machine known as Thresher, the internal geography of Site-13 was subject to constant shifts. The team then split up to cover more ground. Munro and Nanku continued to follow the pipes and the heat toward the furnace, while Irantu and Onru broke away to explore what lay beyond a weak wall. After busting through the wall, Irantu and Onru explored several empty office blocks before finding their way into a control room with a glass observation deck. While the window was obscured by garbage and human corpses, signage indicated that the incinerator and the body pit were directly below them. The team once again reconvened and managed to activate the incinerator, which shredded the mass stuck inside with several large turbines before burning the resulting slurry, the same process that had happened to so many anomalies under Emerson's watch. With the path cleared, Samsara decided to descend via the incinerator, using the drainage pipe as a kind of makeshift tunnel. Eventually, they happened upon the leeches, large, black, and hungry. These creatures seemed to infest 1730 by the thousand. Anywhere that blood or drainage runoff could be found, the leeches could be found too. They didn't appear to have any connection to an anomaly previously secured and contained by the Foundation. They squeezed and wriggled through the cracks in the walls, searching for fresh blood. Onru detected that the leeches all moved with a kind of collective purpose, suggesting a telepathic hive mind. Onru was able to tap into this hive mind using her cybernetic enhancements and map the chaotic geography of 1730 through the leech colony's collective knowledge. With this new advantage, they could add a second goal to this rescue mission: find the Thresher device causing all the instability and potentially reduce power to it if possible. But they were on the clock to save the other survivors, as those leeches were sure to get hungry for warm blood soon. They followed the leeches down the most direct path toward the survivors. On the way, they encountered a horrifying creature, the many-limbed humanoid nightmare that functions as Emerson's eternal punishment. His charred body tied screaming and alive to the platform where the monster's head should be. They managed to make it past the monster before finally rendezvousing with Captain Hollis of Mobile Task Forces 8 and 9, otherwise known as the Mole Rats, as well as the game wardens and the other survivors. There were 27 surviving members of Site-13 staff, many of which had severe injuries, making it even harder to transport them back to safety through the hazardous terrain. And to make matters worse, the leeches were back. The team quickly decided that the best route out of here was directly past the Thresher, where they could reduce power to the machine for just long enough to create a stable path of escape. Nanku opened fire on a horde of approaching leeches with a flamethrower, and everyone began running for their lives. It was a final make-or-break dash to safety. However, their advance was soon stopped by a strange robed creature drawing a cognitohazardous meme on the wall with its claws. When the team attempted to engage, it attacked, exposing additional deadly memes and the dangerous effects of its single white eye. And we're not talking about internet memes here. These are symbols and information that are often deadly to even bear witness to. And for you or I, this would be a real threat, but not to a team equipped with goggles containing cognitohazard filter technology. The battle was cut short when the floor collapsed underneath them and the creature was devoured by something even larger and more monstrous, a gigantic black leech covered in huge red eyes. Its entrance caused thousands of leeches to spill out into the hall as the monster screeched and slithered its tentacles after them. Allow us to introduce you to Elijah, also known as the Leech Boy, and a pivotal component of the very existence of SCP-1730. He was a boy with the mind of a toddler, but he had the strange ability to absorb blood through people's skin, hence his nickname Leech Boy. One of the doctors in Site-13, Dr. Hadley, took pity on Elijah. After all, he didn't choose to be the way he was. Director Emerson didn't share Hadley's sympathy. His orders to exterminate all anomalies included humanoids like Elijah. When Hadley protested, Emerson had her beaten within an inch of her life while other dissenters were shot. Dr. Hadley, disgusted by the inhumanity of her superiors, devised the perfect revenge. She sabotaged the incinerator and the body pit, allowing a mass containment breach that flooded the site with deadly anomalies. Young Elijah ended up consuming the slurry of the other shredded anomalies, causing him to mutate into a powerful monster, a behemoth of a leech who gave birth to and controlled all the others. It was Hadley's revenge that caused Emerson to panic and activate Thresher, leading to a rift in reality and the creation of 1730, and by extension, all the problems faced by our heroes today. Samsara and the others fled Leech Boy and began taking a different escape route. However, while en route, they encountered the dreaded crystal butterflies, a dangerous SCP capable of destroying organic matter with a mere touch. Iratu stepped up to bat, roasting the creatures with his arm-mounted incinerator and taking extreme damage to his body in the process. But they didn't have time to rest. With the butterflies disposed of, they kept moving, heading toward the Thresher. But not all the SCPs were necessarily working against them. Bobble the Clown came in handy at the next checkpoint, manifesting in the monitor of an electronic door and opening the way through. As they continued on their journey, they had to fight off frequent attacks from leeches, losing some of the task force members in the process. They were also forced to face off against a number of other anomalies in order to survive, such as SCP-2316, manifesting as floating bodies beneath them, and SCP-1370, which used a huge mechanized body to attack the team of survivors. That was all just a warm-up for the true final battle, though. The floor shattered beneath them, and out of an impossibly huge chamber, the monster that had once been Elijah wriggled free, reaching for them with huge tentacles and shrieking from its thousand-toothed maw. It was at least 200 meters tall and barely reacted to any amount of firepower. It seemed like they were all doomed until Captain Hollis had a truly crazy idea. With the help of Samsara, she led the bloodthirsty abomination down through the cryonic center and into an Olympia-class testing chamber. There, as the Leech Boy was bearing down on them, Hollis opened the gates to two adjacent containment cells, and something beyond incredible happened. Two of the most powerful SCPs ever known, a giant sword-wielding Gate Guardian and the reality-bending Cosmic Deer, SCP-2845, entered the arena. What followed was one of the most epic showdowns in the history of the SCP Foundation, as the Deer and the Gate Guardian went to battle against the all-devouring Leech. While the monsters fought, Hollis ordered her team to get the rest of the survivors to safety. She and Munru of the Samsara team remained behind to prevent any of the anomalies from escaping, as the entire base began sinking into the ground from the combined forces of the battle raging around them and the Thresher's continued onslaught on reality. Even if the survivors escaped, would the anomalous develop developments inside Site-13 escape and wreak havoc on the world at large, that's when Hollis received a vision. A horrific, charred, post-apocalyptic world roamed by inconceivably powerful entities and nightmare gods. It was a vision so horrific that just seeing it nearly broke her mind. She knew what she had to do. The only way she could truly defeat this terrible place and ensure safety for mankind. While Leech Boy, the Gate Guardian, and the Deer continued their battle for the ages, Hollis ran to Thresher and forced the machine into overdrive. Up above, the remaining members of Samsara, the Mole Rats, and the Game Wardens escorted the survivors to safety. Downstairs, Thresher emitted a blinding white light as the system began overload. In her final moments, all Hollis could do was laugh. Perhaps it was a laugh of pure insanity, of a mind broken by the horror she witnessed. Or perhaps it was a laugh of victory, knowing that in spite of the immense powers all around her, she had won the day. She had saved not only the survivors and her teammates, but possibly all of humanity. And all it cost her was everything. Outside, the survivors had reached a safe distance away when the entirety of Site-13 imploded in a final brilliant flash. When the dust cleared, SCP-1730 was gone. All that was left was an immense crater where the impossible base should have once been. Captain Hollis had done it. Through overloading the Thresher machine, she'd taken this anomaly.
Damn, dude, I was starting to like Hollis. What the fuck?
It was torn from its moorings on our Earth and kicked into the infinity of space-time, perhaps never to be seen again, along with everything it contained. SCP-1730 was reclassified to neutralized. Of course, the Foundation would have plenty of other anomalies to pursue soon after, but the nightmare of Emerson's Site-13 was over once and for all.
Nice.
A light shines above a metal table with a chair positioned on either side. This is the isolated, hermetically sealed interview chamber of Provisional Site-23. Outside the room waits two shell-shocked human Mobile Task Force members, another with invisible ghost legs, three powerful cyborgs, and a scientist from another dimension.
Oh, they went back to the
They're all
original
here
designs.
to
What
talk
the
about
fuck?
one thing, the nightmare that unfolded at Site-13, also known as SCP-1730. Everyone thinks they know the story. A mysterious site suddenly appears in Texas, seeming to exactly match the blueprint for an abandoned site that's supposed to be in Nome, Alaska. What started as a simple anomalous location turned out to be an epic horror from another dimension. The task forces sent in by the Foundation were either massacred or trapped inside, and those who survived reported seeing unspeakable carnage inside the base, including a death machine designed to destroy anomalies. And that's not all. As a result of the mysterious Thresher machine, the entire location had been transformed into a shifting spatial anomaly filled with creatures straight out of a nightmare. From giant telepathic leech monsters to huge multi-limbed demigods that would eternally punish the site's murderous director, Elliot Emerson. It was only through the combined might of three different mobile task forces, including the legendary Samsara, and the sacrifice of brave Captain Hollis, that the cursed location was finally flung into a different dimension, neutralizing the threat it posed to our reality. But for the SCP Foundation, the story doesn't end with neutralization. There's still plenty more questions that need answering, and that's why today we're going to tell you what they found out after the neutralization of SCP-1730. Not only will we discover what's become of the many people involved, we'll learn about what happened in the last moments before the neutralization took place. And perhaps most importantly of all, for the sake of our universe, we'll find out how Site-13 came into existence and how Site Director Emerson went down such a dark path. It's time to get some answers. Welcome to the final part of the SCP-1730 saga, as we close the book on one of the most deadly locations in the Foundation multiverse. First to sit down in the interview chair was Captain Ephraim Ross, leader of the Mobile Task Force Apollo 3, also known as the Game Wardens. He was a shaken man, looking far older than his 35 years, his eyes heavy with the weight of the horrors he'd seen. And he and his team were among the first to venture into the bowels of Site-13 and witness the atrocities that had gone down there, like the body pit full of fleshy slurry, or the countless containment chambers that marked their occupants for vivisection and termination. Captain Ross was haunted by the things that happened to his team under his watch, as the anomalous transformation of Houston's legs and the nightmarish warping death of Noah at the hands of a stretchy, reality-bending anomaly. He compared the state of chaos going on down there to something like Jurassic Park, where all hell had broken loose and the monsters ruled. He also remarked on the Olympia containment cells, each the size of a football stadium, capable of containing things far beyond the scope of this universe's SCP Foundation. His interviewer was the hard-nosed Dr. Peter Vincent, who thanked Captain Ross for his contributions and called in the next interview subject, Agent Liam Ohalo, a Game Warden's task force member working under Captain Ross. He had a 1,000-yard stare, and even the untrained observer could see that Agent Ohalo had left some parts of himself back in Site-13. When Dr. Vincent attempted to interview him, he mostly remained silent, only volunteering one grim statement. "We should have died in there. This isn't real. This isn't real. We were supposed to die in there." Next to be interviewed was Captain Irantu of Mobile Task Force Tau 5, aka Samsara. His interviewer, Dr. Isha St. Clair, questioned him about the nature of the mission, and the cybernetic soldier was even keeled about the matter. He said that in spite of regrettable losses of life, he was still satisfied with the outcome of the mission overall. The high-value targets were rescued, the anomaly was for all intents and purposes neutralized, and the degree of loss was actually better than their pre-mission predictions. It seems that the weight of death doesn't weigh quite as heavily on those who will probably never have to experience it, as the Samsara team are capable of simply being rebooted into new bodies if terminated in the field. People like Captain Hollis weren't as lucky. Next, Agent Cotter Houston of the Game Wardens was both interviewed and medically evaluated by Dr. Ian Harris. Agent Houston had his legs dematerialized after he tripped into a rising tide of anomalous liquid, which he described as looking like a moving physical computer glitch. However, in spite of this, Agent Houston is still able to stand and move of his own free will. It seemed to Dr. Harris that Houston's legs were somehow trapped between dimensions. Houston told Dr. Harris that he didn't experience any kind of pain when his legs were removed, but to this day he occasionally feels something furry brushing up against them. Perhaps wherever his legs are, they aren't alone. Next, the stoic Agent Munru of Samsara was interviewed by Captain Elliot O'Neill of Mobile Task Force D-26, also known as Time Cops. Captain O'Neill had a bone to pick with Munru, namely that he'd allow Captain Hollis to run off and sacrifice her own life despite having a clear directive to prevent the human task force members from endangering themselves at any cost. Munru deflected, claiming that when Hollis separated from the group, he assumed that she ran off with intentions that never included her own demise. O'Neill and the Foundation found this answer unsatisfying and decided to move on to their next interview with Onru, the last person with Captain Hollis before her death. The interviewer, Dr. Darian Arnold, probed the elite Samsara operative on why she turned off her camera before she and Hollis reached the Thresher, the machine that Hollis overloaded to annihilate Site-13 from our dimension. She gave a more compelling answer than Munro. When she and Hollis entered the server room on the way to the Thresher, they encountered what might have been the ultimate cognito hazard. It was a vision of a terrifying alternate dimension with billions dead. A poisoned star like the biblical wormwood fell from the burning sky. A nightmare god like the one torturing Elliot Emerson wandered along the fields of crucified people, covered in deadly cognito-hazardous runes. Just looking at it burned the scramble technology out of Munru's eyes, and she quickly turned off her cameras to avoid potentially frying the brains of Mission Control. Hollis wasn't so lucky. The things she witnessed broke her sanity, and when she finally overloaded the Thresher machine, she was laughing and crying. Finally, and perhaps the most enlightening debriefing interview of them all, Site Director William Vesterlin interviewed Dr. Muhammad Scott, the highest-ranking researcher of Site-13 and confidant of the now infamous Director Elliot Emerson. The question was simple. Just what had happened for Site-13 to become so messed up? And Dr. Scott answered in detail with a tale of corruption, alternate realities, and the perils of unchecked power. In his home dimension, Site-13 was originally created in Nome, Alaska to house the corpse of a giant sea creature that beached itself on the border of India and Bangladesh in 1964. It became the largest and most secretive Foundation containment facility in the latter half of the 20th century. However, disaster struck in 1994 when a Marxist extremist used an anomaly to level the Willis Tower in Chicago. As a result, the Foundation lost a lot of its funding and international support, leaving it in dire financial straits. Enter the true villain of the Site-13 story, Paul Manafort. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's because he was an associate of President Trump in our universe who got into legal trouble for shady international dealings. However, in Dr. Scott's universe, he was a powerful staffer for President Bob Dole, who in that reality had beaten Bill Clinton in the 1996 presidential election. Manafort was made the new Secretary General of the Global Occult Coalition, the UN's answer to the SCP Foundation, and one of their leading competitors, with an ethos geared toward killing rather than containing anomalies. Manafort and the GOC co-opted the struggling Foundation, providing them with money in exchange for control. The Foundation had no choice but to accept the deal with the devil. Slowly, Manafort replaced the Foundation old guard with toadies and loyalists. The Ethics Committee and the O5 Command were dismantled. Dissenters were dragged out of their offices and shot point blank in the head execution style. Site-13 had originally been directed by Dr. Bright, but Bright was arrested and contained under false pretenses, so Manafort could install a new director, a mid-level researcher by the name of Elliot Emerson. Emerson is often painted as a sadistic monster who took pleasure in torturing anomalies to death and flushing them down the body pit. The reality is both simpler and more grim. Emerson, it turns out, was just an eager yes man. He was put into his position to follow Manafort's orders to a T, and those orders were simple: kill. In a perfect example of the banality of evil, Dr. Emerson converted Site-13 into a brutal slaughterhouse, just as his overlords at the GOC had ordered him. But things were quickly getting out of hand, and one of the most vocal critics of the new regime was one of Emerson's old lovers, one Dr. Vera Hadley, assistant director of anomalous biology. Dr. Hadley was disgusted by the inhuman acts Emerson was carrying out and couldn't stay silent, and for this she faced horrific consequences. Corrupt guards stripped her and beat her to within an inch of her life in front of her co-workers.
Jesus.
In that moment, she swore her revenge. She sabotaged the containment procedures and had the engineers rig the already unstable thresher device to overload. As Emerson watched the anomalies break containment, he began to fear for his life, both from the anomalies themselves and from the punishments of his superiors at the GOC. Dr. Scott revealed that Emerson was no evil mastermind. He was a lapdog for the GOC, a dirty coward all the way to the very end, and he was desperate. He held Dr. Scott at gunpoint and ordered him to activate the thresher or die, and the rest is history. There would be no redemption for Dr. Scott's former friend, as Emerson ended up chained to the rune-covered platform head of a nightmare god for all eternity. So ends the debriefing of the Site-13 survivors, and closes the book on that terrible place, for now anyway. The story of SCP-1730 is anything but simple, and there are so many angles from which this dark tragedy of cruelty and corruption can be approached, and ultimately, it was all for the same two things at the root of every evil: the desire for money and power. But the pursuit of these base desires can lead to some truly nightmarish consequences, and nobody knows this better than former director Elliot Emerson, who will be paying for these sins until the end of time, and perhaps even beyond. Now go check out another epic tale from the SCP Foundation.
That was pretty interesting. I feel like I got the Cliff Notes version. Not the full thing, but you know what? Well, it'll do. It'll do for now. So hold on. Fucking. How long have we been streaming? 2 hours? Oh boy. Alright, hold on. Let's see here. What else we got? No. What time is it? It's 12. Alright. I'm probably gonna end it here, guys, because it's already 12. I haven't been sleeping much, but it was fun. I think we'll pick up on it tomorrow again. For sure. I love the SCP stuff, and hey, now I got more stuff to research. So, if you like today, why don't you come on back tomorrow and we'll explore more of this. Lord knows I'm excited about it because, again, I love this stuff. I've got more stuff to research now and more stuff to continue to explore with you. For example, we haven't touched on the Scarlet King, Tickle Monster, the Girl, the Indestructible Lizard, or the Hard to Kill Lizard, whatever one, and just every number. Yeah, I think I'm interested in this stuff. So yeah, let's end it here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.